the room is a little bit divided between election reform movement people and happy people, okay? So, I mean, the happy people are going to become increasingly unhappy as the evening wears on. I'm going to talk to the happy people, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to confirm your worst fears, because the situation is extremely dire. However, it would be a mistake, a moral error, and a big civic mistake to make you feel like you want to crawl home, get into a hot tub, get a blade, no, not drown. Well, you know, no, because we got into this situation because of policies and policy decisions. We can get out of it through policy decisions. So let me first make the point that, you know, we tend to think the problem here is a technical problem. You know, it has to do with our having the wrong kind of technology. If we move beyond that narrow conception of the problem, we might say it's a civic problem, okay? And fundamentally, it is a civic problem because the country has drifted away from its first principles. But ultimately, it's not even just a technical or a civic problem, it's a psychological problem. It's a psychological problem. It has to do with what Rob mentioned before, the fact that people don't want to face what's actually been going down. It's extremely hard to take, okay? Now, we like to think as Americans that we, you know, with our free press, we can, no, don't sneer now. We all think either we think we have a free press or we ought to have a free press, but we are fairly confident that, you know, we get a kind of truth that they don't get in closed societies. That here the truth is the truth. It's not like 1984 and so on, where the truth is just what somebody says it is. Well, what's actually happened around this issue is that the truth has become, it's become subjective. It's become a matter of what prism you use to look at it. It's very scary. I'm going to read you something. This is from a New York Times profile of Barack Obama. It was published on December 28th. Listen to this. In Washington, Mr. Obama made it clear almost immediately that his career would not be defined by his race. One of the first acts of the new Congress was to certify the results of the Electoral College. Some members of the Congressional Black Caucus moved to contest the certification of the Ohio votes. Mr. Obama did not join them. In a hastily arranged maiden speech, he said he was convinced that President Bush had won, but he also urged Congress to address the need for reform. Okay, no, wait. Now, I'm not reading this as an attack on Obama. No. Listen, it's very important that we rise above. I mean, I could tell you who I'm supporting. This is irrelevant. The person whom we should support ultimately is the one who gets the most votes. That is, the one who gets the most votes should be the one who's chosen. That's elementary, isn't it? Now, the point of the article is, oh, this guy's a triangulator and a phony, okay? And maybe he is, okay? That's not what's so stunning about this paragraph I read you. What's stunning about it is the first sentence. In Washington, Mr. Obama made it clear almost immediately that his career would not be defined by his race. And to illustrate that point, they say, yeah, he said the election in Ohio wasn't stolen. So to think that the election in Ohio was stolen is a black thing. See? Yeah. It's a black thing. If you think that's black thinking. It's like O.J.'s innocent. See? So that's a racial prism. You think that you're black. When Conyers wrote his report on what happened in Ohio in 2004, the press almost completely ignored it, you know. And I think unconsciously it was a racist thing. Oh yeah, you know, it's a black thing. They think it was stolen, but that's not true in white eyes. You see, that's a racial prism. There's also an ideological prism. You know, Fooled Again was, I'm proud to say, Bobby Kennedy Jr.'s inspiration for turning his attention to the issue of election fraud, right? Okay. We don't have time for applause, okay? So, he wrote this great piece on Ohio, ran in Rolling Stone. Farhad Manjoo of Ceylon, which is one of a number of left liberal magazines that have taken a gigantic dump on this issue, okay? Farhad Manjoo wrote this really vitriolic attack on Bobby's piece in which he said that Robert Kennedy Jr. and Mark Crispin Miller represent the far left. So that's an ideological prism. It's like a left thing to say, oh, the election was stolen. So like we're members of the Shining Path guerrillas, right? Because we think the election was stolen. Then there's the partisan prism, which is the most common one. So when Bobby's piece came out, Don Imus, he's back. Control yourself. Don Imus, excuse me, I've been talking all week, had Michael Beschloss on his show, the historian. And in a mood of some hilarity, Don asked Michael Beschloss, so what do you think of this idea, that Ohio was stolen? And Michael Beschloss said, oh, it's these diehard Kerry supporters. They're like the Japanese soldier who staggered out of the jungle in Okinawa 30 years after the war. Okay? Now, aside from the fact that that probably didn't happen, I mean, he's a historian, so he should be, Aside from that fact, Kerry and his team, of course, have avoided this issue like the plague. This movement has nothing to do with Kerry. How many of you know that Kerry told me, how many know? Okay, not enough. I have to tell the story. And I'm going to run out of time before I get to the upbeat part, which is crucial. When this book came out, Fooled Again came out in October of 2005, I brought a copy to a fundraiser for Kerry because I wanted to give it to him. I wanted to give him the book, I mean. And I wanted to, say, here's the evidence. You want evidence, So I handed him the book. I said, you were robbed, Senator. And he said, I know! Just like that with the fingertips. I know! And then he started to complain bitterly about his fellow Democrats on the Hill because they won't deal with the issue. This is Kerry talking to me. He says, I was just talking to Chris Dodd last week about this. I said, Chris, these machines, they're dangerous. We got to do something about it. And you know what he said to me? He said, we looked into it. There's nothing to it. Chris Dodd, Kerry says to me, they're in denial. Okay? Now, this is very important. They're in denial. He said, I need evidence. Is there evidence in your book? I said, the book's loaded with evidence. In fact, there's no evidence that Bush won. This is true. I mean, unless you count the official numbers, the kind of evidence. So, it was an incredible conversation. I said, you have the moral standing to make this an issue. You should follow your own example, the example you set with your investigations into BCCI and Iran-Contra, which I happen to think were the high points of his Senate service, right? You should make this your issue. It's not just about your career. It's not just about the party. It's about American democracy. I was orating. I was getting a little worked up, I was writing him a speech, basically. He said, well, somebody should do that. It's true, but what about the sour grapes factor? No, that's a fair thing for him to bring up. That's reasonable. And I said, that's a problem, but I promise you, if you look at the evidence, you can say with perfect confidence, you did think it wasn't stolen, but you studied it, you've looked into it, and now you must regretfully conclude that it was stolen. So he said, I look forward to reading your book. This is great. Thank you for writing it. He socked me on the arm. He really did that. Not that hard. He gave me a thumbs up.